a battlefield archaeology mystery. Welcome. This is the largest Iron Age hill fort in the whole of Dumfriesshire, east. On the southern side of the hill fort, we have this, a large Roman camp. High banks still, deep ditches, and take a look at this. Enormous Tituli. And on the northern flank of the fort, another large Roman camp. This setup is unique in Europe. We don't see anything like this anywhere else. A native stronghold held firmly within the jaws of the Roman brutes. Unparalleled quantities of lead slingshot, ballista cannonballs and arrowheads found here led to the view that this was a site where we had evidence of the Romans using overwhelming force, exemplary force, to crush the natives. And just to provide some backup on that, up until 1965, 133 lead shots had been found up here. Nowhere else in Britain had produced finds like that. Is this then a place where our worst fears about the Romans came true? Or is there a nicer explanation? But then, on the eve of the swinging 60s and all that free love, the site was reinterpreted as a friendly Roman training ground. In this video then, we will present the arguments for and against an act of supreme Roman aggression having happened here versus something more palatable to our delicate 21st century senses. Now, I reckon we've got some real armchair generals out there watching our videos. So we'll present the evidence and we'll see what you make of it. A huge Iron Age hill fort. Large Roman camp facing northern entrances. Large Roman camp facing southern entrances. Can this really be anything else other than overwhelming Roman force in an unrecorded battle from antiquity? Walking on some low earthworks, don't know if you can see those, on top of the hill fort here. The outer defences are very low now, difficult to see, but I'll grab my notebook and give you some dry facts. It's known as Burnswark, and I checked that with a local, that's how they say it, but I was warned that some people call it Brunswick as well. Over there, down there, is the main Roman road running up the west side of the country here. The hill fort is 7 hectares in size and about 300 metres above sea level, with fantastic views out across the Solway. Burnswark hill fort is 20 kilometres north of Hadrian's Wall, and this striking table-topped hill fort may have been a tribal capital, Novante or possibly Selgove. A couple of miles south on the likely 1st century road, Margery 7F, is Birrens Roman fort, and sometimes Burnswark hill fort gets called Birrenswark. The road passes to the west at the foot of the hill, skirting a settlement, and it survives well in the landscape here. The camps were first identified in 1726 by Alexander Gordon and surveyed in the 1750s by William Roy. First excavation in 1898 by Barber, and then further interventions by Collingwood and J.K. St. Joseph in the first half of the 20th century, all concluding that the hill fort was subject to a Roman siege due to the position of the camps and the finds of lead sling, arrows, ballista, cannonballs and bolts. Nice ramparts. It was in 1964 that a chap called Steer was the first to announce that, in his view, we are not looking at the scene of a brutal Roman attack. We were looking at a Roman military training ground. Steer sounds like he's a baddie from Blake 7, doesn't he? And then between 1965 and 1970, a chap called Joby, who himself sounds like he's from the sort of the cynical Eric Saywood era of Doctor Who, he did excavations, and his conclusions were exactly the same. There's lots of great stuff if you tootle around here. Look at this dent on the northern camp bank. You can see the Roman construction there, a lot of stonework in there. I'm in the northern camp here, and one of Joby's arguments for military training ground over siege assault is the irregular shape of this camp, i.e. they're learning the ropes and making a right old hash of it. Other points, the absence of siege camps to the west and east of the Hillfort, and his view that the Hillfort itself was just not strong enough to warrant this level of effort by Roman troops. His Roman pottery finds dated to the first half of the 2nd century, with similar dating to finds inside the Hillfort. And I hope you're paying attention, because you're going to have to decide soon in our survey. I'm in the southeastern gate of the fort. There are 2 gates on the southern side, and according to Joby's excavations in the 1960s, he found the concentration of lead shot in these gateways. Now, if I look down, I could see a titulus. His idea was that the training camp, that they would stand down there on the titulus, fire up to a target set up in the gateway. And that was his way of accounting for the concentration of lead shot in these 2 gateways. I'll have to resort to some YouTube pointing there, but that's a little bit of rampart that you can see there. The rampart is really difficult to make out nowadays. Now, rather wonderfully here, this is obviously natural exposed rock, but I think if you look at it, you can see signs that that has been sort of chipped away at and levelled off for some reason. Don't know how their gate structure worked, but I think you're looking at some Iron Age craftsmanship there. And perhaps Joby's key finding was that the stone ramparts of the fort had apparently been demolished before the lead slingshot was fired. So the lead ammunition was found on top of the demolished wall. And this is rather wonderful as I walk down from that southern gateway, the southeastern gateway. You can really get the sense of how that worked in the Iron Age. I love stuff like that. Those of you who are that way inclined might want to know that the Tituli on this northern side of the southern camp later picked up the name of the 3 Brethren. And under Joby's ideas, these were effectively artillery platforms, but platforms where soldiers would stand and just practice their slingshot throwing at targets placed in the 2 gates on the southern side of the fort. In this, the southern camp, Barber's 1898 investigations indicated semi-permanent buildings. And it's interesting, I've noticed quite a bit of stonework still lying around here today. A much diminished titulus here on this eastern side of the northern camp. In 2011, a chap called Breeze summarised all the arguments for and against these 2 ideas. He weighed them up, and he came to the conclusion, he landed effectively on the friendly training camp idea.
It's family fortune.
I don't know if these places have the same effect on you, but when I look at this, whether it was a siege camp or a training camp, it's a fairly sort of temporary structure, and yet here it is nearly 2,000 years later, still very evident in the landscape. Now, I'm sure that our demographic will be familiar with family fortunes, and I thought to try and inject some energy on this very hot day into the proceedings, we'd sort of borrow that format a little bit, because it's now time for you to decide. We've been looking at our battlefield archaeology, and we're now going to hand over to you to see what you think. Hopefully I'm just going to get rid of that, it's a bit hot. Hopefully you've all received the app that I emailed out to you to enable you to vote here. So, before you vote, I'm going to tell you, after we've revealed what you think, I am going to bring you up to date with what has been discovered here since 2015, 2016, so after Steer. But it's time for you to vote now, considering everything that you have seen presented. Are we looking at the evidence of a brutal, vicious assault by the Romans on the natives here, or are we looking at a more sort of fluffy, army fun training ground? It's time to vote. Get to it. David B. in Spain, stop Googling. You've got to go by the evidence that you've seen. And please wake up, Neolithic chick. I know it's Roman stuff, but you can do this. And our survey says 68% of you think it is a training ground. You bunch of softies.
Our survey said...
Well, at least 32% of you are well hard. That's something, I suppose. From 2015 onwards, there has been a series of investigations here that demonstrate just how brilliant modern-day archaeology can be. Methodical, scientific, logical. They did a series of things here. Metal detecting across the site to identify the spread of the ammunition, and then isotope analysis to see if that lead ammunition matched up to examples from the nearby fort at Birrens. As well as that, there were some excavations and some experiments at slingshotting, which must have been a hell of a lot of fun. Well, I suppose I ought to bring some of our own citizen science into the mix here. So I'm just going to sit here. I'm on the top of the Hillfort. I'm going to soak in the atmosphere and see what I feel happened here. Yep, bad things happened. One of the great things about the site, you've probably noticed it's all pasture, so it hasn't been ploughed. So where they found the lead shot was pretty much where it had landed. As a result of the metal detected, they found another 147 examples of the lead ammunition, and they got something like 704 lead signals. So that 147 is on top of the, what was it I said earlier, that had been found up to the 60s, 133. A lot of lead ammunition. This is pretty intimidating. I'm coming down from the, what would it be, southwestern entrance, and the trackway that is in use today, I bet you, is the original Iron Age trackway. It's deeply cut back there. And as you come down, this is what you see. Intimidating. The metal detecting analysis was amazing, and along this side here, the northern bank of the southern camp, there's a very heavy concentration of dropped slingshot as those soldiers were slingshotting up there towards the southern side of the fort. I think their experiment showed that from practicing slingshot themselves, that the drop rate was about 5%. But if you look at the graphic, you will see all along there is dropped slingshot. One single event. I think I got away with an amazing there. Nobody seemed to notice. Look at the concentrations of shot on the southern side of the fort. Not at all concentrated in the gateways as per Joby in the 60s. The spread of shot along this side is something like about half a kilometre. It's absolutely in line with an all-out assault, suppressive fire. Joby was right about the wall. The shot was on top of that. It was stratified to one event, and the isotope analysis matched to the northern camp finds as well. One event. Ballista cannonballs 2, a dumped cache of 375 shots found in the northern camp. You see, the thing is, whilst the slingshot experiments, that must have been such fun, they showed that you could get that lead slingshot about 150 to 170 metres. I'm stood here on the middle one of the three brethren, and you can't see either of those southern gates. So the idea that there were targets there just falls to pieces. Current thoughts are then that the primary assault on the Hillfort was from this side, the southern side, with the large Tituli able to house the artillery equipment to lob those Ballista cannonballs up at the natives on the top. After last week, I tried going to Ditchaholics Anonymous, but it didn't work. You might have noticed this, because I know you all suffer from it as well. Over in the northeastern corner of the southern Roman camp, we have this sort of rectilinear structure, I suppose you'd call it. Now, this used to be considered to be part of the Roman construction, but now the latest thoughts are that this is native. This was here before the Roman camp. It's another part of the subjugation of the native Britons, the native Celts up there. I've noticed on the Tituli, quite a few of them have got these sort of incisions, these cuttings sort of on the side of them. Possibly they're considering some titulus cosmetic surgery. I don't think I'll include that. 6 types of lead shot were identified, and the isotope analysis matched the type 2 shot to that previously found at the Birrenswark down the road, which itself had been dated to the late Hadrianic, early Antonine period. So we are in line with Joe Bell's pottery finds at the Hillfort. The experiments showed that the hold type whistled as it flew through the air, and that must have added to that sense of fear and pandemonium up at the Hillfort. A few miles down the road, we have this. It's Birrens Roman fort, and here, try and have a go at the Roman name with a mouthful. They found a large victory inscription here to Antinous Pius, and legionary inscriptions for legions from Strasbourg and Mainz. Now, we know that those troops were over here for the Antonine invasion of 140, when they were pushing forward, trying to retake what we now call Scotland. And of course, we know that the Antonine invasion was led by the then governor of Britain, Quintus Lollius Abicus, and he was a vicious so-and-so. We know that from his suppression, brutal, bloody suppression of the revolt of Bar Cocker. Perhaps the brutality we can see at Burnswark was the first blooding as an emperor tries to earn his mettle by reconquering the Caledonian lowlands. Have you said it yet? It's quite a mouthful, isn't it? Anyhow, here on the southern side of the fort, although it's all covered in gorse, you can see it remains a pretty impressive structure. Now, they also found here an inscription to an architectus, and actually another one not too far away from here. And that is a really rare thing to find that. In Roman times, an architectus wasn't what it sounds like. It was actually an engineer, the ideal person to look after and maintain siege engines. I doubt very much you'll be able to see that, but the building platforms in Birrenswark are very clear. And by Jove, is that another titulus? It's weird, isn't it? Over 50 Roman Gazette vlogs, and I'd never mentioned titulus or tituli, and then obviously the last one we did it, and now we're awash with them in this one. It's all turning into something not too dissimilar to the phalli debacle of a couple of years ago. The other option is the uprising of 155 AD, but whichever, as I played back this footage of the Hillfort viewed from Birrens, a shiver went down my spine. One day in the mid-2nd century, soldiers marched up that road to the Hillfort, dug 2 great camps sufficient for 6,000 men, and attacked the natives. This must have been the final day for this huge Hillfort. And poor old Joe B2 lauded in his obituary for a reappraisal of relations at this time. It appears that he was wrong in this instance. I don't think there's any other option. We need to finish on this tituli, don't we? And I've got a wonderful surprise for our core demographic this week. Titter ye not! It's a real exclusive for the channel, actually. You're gonna love it. LTVs will remember in the very early days of the channel, when it was even less successful than it is today, I used to wrap up each edition of the Roman Gazette with a Roman joke. I had to stop in the end because I ran out of Roman jokes. Well, we now have a joke scriptwriter, and it's none other than Jim Murray, who used to write scripts for Frankie Howard of Up Pompeii fame. That's why I said titty ye not back there. So here is our first joke to wrap up this week's Roman Gazette, which I hope you have enjoyed. So here goes. What did Roman soldiers guarding the northern frontier of the Roman Empire in Britain used to have for their breakfast? Hadrian Wall's sausages. You sort of have to say Hadrian singular and then Wall's sausages for it to work, but it's very good. It's very good. Very good. Very good.